taught me more about photography than photography itself ever did. Do you need me to back up? I just noticed you started the recording a tad late. You good? Okay.
I
So
apologize, but yes, we missed just a few minutes of it.
yeah, I think that's probably okay, missing that beginning part. I was just kind of going, for those that are listening to the recording, I was just going over the importance of how vision, we tend to focus more on how to do things than what we do on why we're doing it to begin with. And I can't remember exactly where the recording started, but yeah, we'll just get going from here. I was talking about my beginnings in film photography back 35 years ago and that sort of thing. But when I put the film camera down, I took a big break before I started digital photography. And during that time, I was a graphic designer. I still am, actually. And I love graphic design. But what's remarkable about it is it actually taught me more about photography than photography itself ever did, oddly. It taught me to see things like, let me get this going here, like line, whether it's complex line and buildings such as this, or really basic line like an airplane contrail. It taught me to see shape because in a three-dimensional world, when we put those objects in a two-dimensional space, they're nothing more than polygons, like this dock, or circles, like these pilings at the beach. Graphic design taught me the importance of negative space and how impactful it can be. Many times the negative space has far more impact than the subject matter does itself, because your viewer's eyes have a place to rest and relax, contemplate, look inwards. Graphic design taught me the importance of having purpose and being precise. Now, there is no such thing as perfection, but there is absolutely such a thing as precision. If we think about graphic design for a moment, we take a bunch of shapes and color and line and text, put it together, and we have a concert poster. But everything is done precisely. They line up. This is not a photograph. This is a layer mask. We'll see this image later, but it just goes to show the level of precision that I'm willing to go through to get the end result. But the most important thing that graphic design ever taught me was that it's okay to be an artist and to create art. And if I'm going to create art photography, I need to take some steps away from the reality. Some of that happens in camera with long exposure capture. Now, I'm not always doing long exposure capture, but many times I am. All of my work is going to go to black and white. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, because I just love it aesthetically. But two, it affords me more flexibility to get further away from the reality. I can control the light in a far more drastic way than what I could probably be afforded to in a color photograph, for example. The luminosity processing, what I call impossible light. So again, from the reality here to the conceptual. And I think you can see that in all of my works, there's some sort of detachment from reality. So we need to define what vision is. Well, it's pretty simple. Vision is you. It is basically your soul being poured into your artwork. It's your inner feelings and emotions being poured into the artwork. Now, we all dream at night, right? If you're not dreaming, you're not sleeping well. See a sleep therapist. And if you're anything like me, your dreams are kind of out there, in left field, to the point where I wake up in the morning sometimes and I'm like, whoa, Kev, where did that come from? What was that about? That's your creative side, guys. It's learning to get in touch with that during your waking hours. That's the difficult part. But we all have it. It's all there. Now, don't confuse vision with what Ansel Adams would refer to as pre-visualization. This is also very important because this is what enables us to picture in our mind's eye what the final resulting photograph is going to look like after we've processed it. And we can take that knowledge to the field because we know now what we can do in post-processing with our work. And we may capture something a little differently based on what we intend to do with it in post. It's that back and forth. So it is very important. Now I get to circle back to this infographic. See what I did there? Circle back. I have what I call 30-60-10 ratio. That 10 is very important, we'll see. 30% of my efforts are on the capture. And this includes the scouting. And if I can scout in person, I would much rather do that. Go to the location, find X marks the spot, and then wait for the conditions to set up right and go back and do the work. The reason I like to scout in person if I can is because it slows me down. I don't feel so hurried when I'm there doing the work. I'm not trying to get around the corner because there may be a better angle somewhere. No, I found the better angle. Go make the capture and then go home and do the work. That's a lot of effort. This is when I'm building the vision, building the story. So if that's only 30% and then 60% happens in post, you can imagine how much time I spend in post on the work. This is when the art is happening. This is when I'm building and developing the vision to bring it to life. But in my mind's eye, no photograph is 100% complete without some sort of physical manifestation of it, the print. I would encourage all of you guys to process your works as if you were going to print them. I'm not suggesting that you print them all, but if you approach each one of your images as if you were going to print it, you will level up your game. Absolutely. Because you will be looking at it through more critical eyes. Whether you're going to print it in a traditional type style with these black frames, white mats, and a nice fine art paper, or whether it's going to be a more modern display like this 5-foot acrylic face mount. I approach all of my works as if I'm going to print them at 5 feet big, let's say. That way, the technical part of it is as good as I can get it. Everything else is subjective, but the technical part is objective. So as you can see, everything that I do circles around the print, and thus I produce far fewer images per year than many of my colleagues, and I'm okay with that. We all know the saying that Ansel had, right? 12 images per year is a pretty good crop. Vision must be contained in any form of fine art. And remember, fine art is tangible. So the artist's heart and soul must be poured into that sculpture or to that painting or to the fine art photograph. And let's talk about the painting, for example. I admire painters. They have the ability, the remarkable ability, to bring to life whatever is in their mind onto canvas so that you and me can see it. And I wish I had that talent. Now, I realize many painters are sometimes referencing a photograph that they've taken or that they've asked to borrow or whatever, but they're still bringing a story to life from nothing. We, on the other hand, as photographers, have it a little differently. I'm not saying it's easier or more difficult. It's just different. We need to find these things in the world, extraordinary things that we see, and then somehow mold those to our vision. It's from a series titled Lightness of Being, 4 small, short series, 4 images, 1 tree, 2 tree, 3, and 4. Well, my Siri just kicked on. These trees existing in an environment where you think they could never exist, right? But yet they're thriving there. To answer the question here, when does vision need to occur? Truth of the matter is it doesn't matter, just so long as that it does. I've been driving under bridges and overpasses my entire life. I grew up here in Atlanta, Spaghetti Junction, and then I moved to Denver where I lived for 20 years. And when I would travel, it would be to places like Dallas or Houston, LA, San Diego, Chicago. Bridges and overpasses fascinate me because as you're approaching them, the shapes and the patterns are constantly evolving. They're almost alive. Now, I'm not suggesting you pay attention to this when you're behind the steering wheel. However, the next time you're in the passenger seat, really pay attention to how that composition is altering as you approach that location. So I wanted to create this world of these bridges that are empty and void of people and traffic, in a weird sky with this long exposure capture is happening. Impossible light exists. Think comic book, think Gotham. This is down in Dallas. I love the bridges in Dallas. They're so tall. There's so many of them stacked on top of one another. They have their own name. They call them the Texas Stack. I was down there quick for a conference. Didn't have time to scout. Didn't have time to go back. Had to work for just a couple quick hours, and it's not the way I like to work typically. To find the compositions and make the captures, also in Texas. This one's down in Charleston. We're going to revisit this image later. This is also in Charleston, Daniel Island, actually. We're going to revisit this image later as well. Elevated illusions. We haven't seen the image on the lower right yet. This one down here. This image here. This was the first one actually in the series. I had already built the vision before I even captured this very first image. Went out and scouted it. This is in Denver. Found the X marks the spot location. Went there when the weather was right. Made the capture. And I love working that way, as I've said. But I don't want to be so closed off that I'm not allowing other things to speak to me when I'm doing that type of work. Because there was something about the lamp poles that day that were speaking to me. I didn't know what it was yet, but I figured I better capture one. So I did. And when I sat down to process this very image, it hit me as to what it was that was speaking to me. Prior to 2013, I was going through some of the deepest, darkest days of my life. Didn't know who I was, didn't know which direction I was going, didn't know what my purpose was. And I was seeking answers in all the wrong places, most notably in the bottom of a bottle. And I'm here to tell you that I was looking for those answers in the bottom of that bottle, probably 5 nights a week until blackout. It was bad for years. And in 2013, I got sober. And I realized, you know what? We all go through tough times in our lives. Maybe not that tough, maybe some tougher. But we all have things in our lives that change and move in a direction we may not like them to. It's represented by the movement of the sky in the background. And we also all have something in our lives that we can count on being there for us, whether it be a family member or a spouse or your faith. We all have that guiding light. And so the series was born. And I started seeking lamp poles everywhere. And I'm here to tell you that beautiful lamp poles exist all over the place. And I started making note of where they were so I could go back and capture them when the skies were right. I will never stop adding to this series because of what it means to me on a personal level. And the more of these that you see pass by, the more powerful that vision becomes. The more powerful, the more impactful that story is. This is what I call series shooting. You've already heard me say it with elevated illusions and the lightness of being series. I will no longer produce a one-off image. Every image that I produce is going to either belong to an existing series or it's going to build a new series because the impact of the storytelling aspect is so much more powerful in a series. Think about guiding light for a moment. If someone were to walk into the gallery and see one of those lamp poles, they may think it's pretty cool, maybe buy it. But if they walked in there and they saw 10 or 20 or 30 of these things on the wall, all processed the same way, they would take a step back and say, what is the maker trying to tell me here? And hopefully they would take the time to go read the artist's statement that's hanging on the wall, the one that I just told you about, my struggles and alcohol and those, all the battles, right? And then they would say, I get it. These aren't lamp poles at all. These are metaphors. Someone may say, you know what? My guiding light is my husband, and he has really bad posture, like this one on the lower left. Someone else may say, my guiding light is my faith, like this cross in the top row. Or someone could say, my guiding light is my entire family, bottom row center. So how do we get from the photograph to the image? You've heard me say the word image a bunch. What does that mean? What does that even mean, Kev? Well, the photograph is what the camera creates. Push the button, you have a photograph. You have a result right away. But the image is what you create because you are the image. It is in, you are in that work if you put your vision in it. Let's take guiding light again, for example. Fresh on our minds. I'll ask the question rhetorically, of course. What time of day do you think these were captured? Many times the answer comes back to me, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Rightfully so. The truth of the matter is they were all captured in the middle of the day. They have to be, because I have to see the movement of the sky in the background. That is paramount to the storytelling aspect. That is paramount to the vision. Furthermore, I need to be able to control how the light is turned on, because if it were already on, it would be way too difficult to properly expose a photograph. So I turn the light on. Every one of them, middle of the day. That's how you create an image. The bridges too. Those lights were not on. The bridge was not lit that way, and it was not dark outside. And those buildings in the background, they're still there, but you just downplay them into the shadow. Gotham, after all. Creating worlds that do not exist. And again, this is the layer mask for that very image, just so you can see the level of precision that it takes for me to get these results sometimes. And each individual surface on this bridge also has its own layer mask as well. Remember Dallas? Couldn't scout, couldn't go back, only had an hour or two to work. And this is what I had. That is not going to work for the vision of elevated illusions. So when I got back to Denver on a cloudy day, I pointed my camera at the sky at a similar angle using the same lens so that I could capture some cloud movement and composite that in to build the vision, to create the world, tell the story. I've entered a lot of PPA competitions, both at the state level and national level, and I'm always honored that my images have been received quite well at the PPA level. And this is the only image that I've ever had at PPA, at the PPA national level, that has received a perfect 100. And I wanted to pause here to point out a few things. When an image scores a 100 at PPA, it doesn't get it right out of the gate. It usually lands around 96, 97, and then it goes into a challenge, essentially. And the judges, there's 5 of them, they discuss it. And typically there's, you know, if an image is going to get 100, typically they all want to put it at 100, but they need to talk about it first. One of the things that they talked about, aside from the beautiful movement of the bridges themselves and the light, and they loved the composition, was the precision of the framing in the top 2 corners. These are rule breakers, guys. You're not supposed to put anything right out of the corner. But if you're going to put it out of the corner, put it there pixel perfect. Make it so that the viewer sees it as absolute intention. And zoom in and put it there to the pixel. And if you're going to do anything symmetrical, I said we'd revisit this one as well. The symmetrical subject matter, it's not enough to just put the center line in the center part of your viewfinder, because you need to pay attention to other elements. Using this as an example, the spacing between these columns down here needs to be the same, or where the bridge exits the frame on the left and on the right needs to be in the same location. Now, that takes a lot of time in the field, and you're not going to nail it. It's impossible to nail that in the field perfectly or precisely. There's no perfect. But you can get it close enough to where you can then skew and stretch in post. And when you do that, then you can get it done precisely. None of these tools in my kit would matter at all to me if I did not have vision. This is my kit, guys. Simple, one camera body, 3 prime lenses, a couple filters, and a tripod. That's it. It's all I carry. I keep it simple. I don't want to plague myself with a lot of decisions in the field. It weighs a ton because those lenses are not light. But your vision can take a simple tool and bring it to life, like this pencil. With it, you can write the word I, or you can draw the letter I. And if you have the talent, you can draw an eye. And this is a pencil drawing. Hector Gonzalez, you can find him on Instagram at HG_art. I shall warn you, however, if you don't like creepy clowns, don't go looking. I'm telling you. He's amazingly talented, though. Amazingly talented. The 3 C's. We've all been here, right? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Every one of these photographers is going to walk away with essentially the same exact resulting photograph. But maybe, just maybe, one of them will have allowed themselves the time to contemplate what it is they want to say, conceptualize on how they want to say it, and then create it. And it will be uniquely theirs. Be that photographer. A lot of choices in photography, lots. But we have 2 very basic ones if you stop and think about it. We can, and there's nothing wrong with it, capture the reality and present it as such. It's documentary photography. Or we can create something more than a photograph. Years ago, I was driving back through Utah. I had gone out to San Diego with a buddy of mine to race in a sailboat regatta. And we were driving back to Denver through Utah. And surprisingly, I had never been to Utah at this point. And I'd already been in Denver for 12 plus years, probably. And when I was driving through Utah, I've seen a gazillion photographs from there, but I didn't realize exactly how Martian the landscape truly is. Guys, if you've not been to Utah, it is absolutely Mars. It is the 4th rock from our sun, no doubt. So when I returned a year later with a photography friend of mine, I already knew exactly how I wanted to tell the story of what I was going to be photographing in Utah. And it was Mars, but not as Mars exists today. Maybe as it exists millennia in the future, when man has somehow gotten there and terraformed the planet, and scraggly plant life is beginning to take hold, and weird light is falling on the subject matter because of the strange sky that's happening, the weird atmosphere, and the light kind of dances around on the ground, almost like you're underwater. I get it, guys. I'm making this stuff up. I'm telling stories. I'm a storyteller. And this is Dead Horse Point State Park. Many of you have probably seen photographs from here or maybe even been there. But this is an overlook. So there's a gazillion photographs that come from this location every year. And I've probably seen all of them, I think. And they're all very beautiful. Sunrise is gorgeous here for you color photographers. The light on the canyon walls is stunning. But all the photographs are essentially the same, essentially. And none of them that I've seen highlight the road. And to me, when I look down there, that's the story, especially in the mind's eye of the 4th rock. because perhaps that's the first road that connects base camp A to base camp B. So if the road is what's important, make it important. Highlight the road. Highlight the road with light in your processing. Everything else is supporting actors. And there's the road again, branching off to the right. And now I'm down on the road, looking back up at where I was, hence the name Vantage. And I got lucky while I was there because the skies were playing very nicely for the 4 or 5 days that we were there working. And it was just lovely to be able to, have just beautiful skies in Utah. But not this day. Remember Dallas? Similar day. And this is not going to fulfill the vision of the fourth rock. It just won't. Not for this particular image. So again, I composite an image in. Capture it later using the same lens and composite it in. And then you may say, Kev, why is it okay that the sky this is a completed image. Why is it okay to have the sky white here? Well, maybe this is down at the equator where the sun is always bright and it's hazy. And maybe this is up at one of the poles where the sun never rises. Welcome to the fourth rock. Now, we've already seen a smattering of before and afters, but it's always fun to go through, before and afters and see how far an image can come from our basic boring captures. And this is where a lot of people get very excited because they see my before images. They're like, well, dang, I have images like that. Yeah, they can come a long way, guys. This is the next image is from a series titled Evacuation. And that series was captured during a hurricane evacuation in downtown Charleston. Later on, I did evacuate. The image title is 7 o'clock meeting because it was at 7 a.m. on Meeting Street, very famous. And if any of you have been to Charleston, you would know that Charleston's a very haunted city. A lot of ghost tours there. And so we can, thinking of it like that, and it's already void of people. It's already haunting looking anyway, right now, as it is, straight out of the gate. But if we paint the light almost like it's moonlit and put weird light on the buildings, we can really make it have a hauntingly beautiful feel. Also from the same series, this one's called Intersection of Power, King and Queen Street. Nobody's there, no traffic. Notice this street lamp here is not turned on, and this one also is not turned on, but the others are, but I have to turn these on too, as well as painting the haunting light on this as well. Intersection of power. And I love architecture photography. I think I heard someone mentioning that earlier, and I think you guys have maybe a competition coming up with that. What's wonderful about architecture, and also very difficult, is that when we stand in front of these buildings, they're enormous. Even buildings that aren't, skyscrapers are still enormous when you stand in front of them, like this, stone building here. But when we get them into a two-dimensional space, they lose that they lose that depth and presence. And especially if you capture on flat light like this. But I love flat light because it allows me to paint the light where I want it to be without having anything else dictating where it needs to be. And if I'm going to do that, I can guide the viewer's eye to the column and to the text and downplay the other areas where I only want them to go, maybe explore the image, but not linger too long. Like the tree on the left and the stairs in the foreground. Yes, explore those areas, but highlight what's important. Bring the depth back, bring the presence back with light and tell that story. Oh yeah, office buildings, boring. Boring. Not to me. Not to me, because I see shape and line and graphic design. I love this. And this is a really good example that the entire frame doesn't need to be, incredibly visible. You can downplay almost everything and just splash some light on some important things and really bring the presence back and the depth back and the storytelling element. From a series titled Dark Nights, Night with a K, I envision these office park buildings being the guardians of their bigger brothers and sisters downtown. Also part of the same series, this is the sky, White Sky Day in Denver, right before it was going to snow. And I love working on white sky days, especially with steel and glass, because the glass windows have featureless reflections. Now you can get the same featureless reflections on a blue sky day, but you're going to be plagued with hard shadow and specular highlight. So on a white sky day, you're free to paint the light and bring it to life. Notice the symmetry in this building as well. It's actually easier to see on the final image. A lot of contrast. Very lovely to do in black and white photography is the utilization of contrast. Image titling is something I haven't touched on, but I'm going to touch on it here because it's hugely important and it can really help guide your viewer to what it is you're telling them and where you want them to go. Because this tree is going to mean a lot in a second. I look at this tree and I see a portrait. And the backdrop, the sky, is almost one of those portrait backdrops right out of it, right as it is. Convert it to black and white. Title it Hitchcock. Now it means something more, doesn't it? That tree took on a whole new meaning all of a sudden simply because of the name. Notice all the debris in the foreground here. Again, downplay it in shadow and allow the tree and the light behind it to speak and bring that vision of life to Poe. These two images are part of a series titled Tale of Dead Writers. I have a Hemingway, a Tolkien, so on and so forth. I didn't mention this earlier, I don't believe, but many times when I see my images straight out of camera, the composition looks absolutely terrible. Now, this isn't a terrible composition, but it's not a strong composition either. But when I'm in the field working and capturing, I'm already deciding on how and where I'm going to process the light and paint the shadows. And so I have to compose for that because it's going to alter the composition with how you drive the light. And I knew that this bridge was going to go down into the woods. It's kind of a creepy, scene. It's going to be really dark and shady down here in the woods. And then I'm going to put light on the kink part of this bridge here. Splash some light on these grasses in the foreground just to give some intrigue and put some light on these branches and the trees just to make them a little more spooky from a series titled Boardwalker Fables, like fairy tales. And for whatever reason, fairy tales are creepy. Some of them, anyway, like Red Riding Hood. And now the composition comes to life. But without that, what Ansel Adams would refer to as the pre-visualization, without being able to pre-visualize how I'm going to process it, I wouldn't be able to compose for that. Now, this took time. I wasn't able to do this right out of the gate. So for those of you that are watching this and are new and you haven't learned those things yet, you will over time. As soon as you begin to learn more with what you can do in post, you'll start to deliver that in the field as well. And if you're going to have a simple, soothing, serene scene such as this, then you need to take the time. And if it's going to be very calming, like this is, where'd the mouse go? There it is. And then when it goes to black and white, all of these things in the sand down here are going to be distracting. Guys, if they're not adding to your image, they're distracting from your image. And if they're distracting from the image, they're distracting from the storytelling, from the vision, from everything, from the zen of this photograph. Clean the beach. Clean it in post. You can't physically go out and clean it, but you can clean it in post. This was the first image I captured and processed when I moved to Charleston in 2017, hence the name Beginnings. I'm going to pause on this image for a little bit too, because we got some stuff to talk about here. I captured this image quite some time ago, and it was going to probably belong to another series, but then I took some time away from my craft, took a sabbatical, if you will. We all need that from time to time, I think, to refresh and recharge. And when I came back, to process this, my vision had changed on what I originally thought it was going to be. And so what I love is I love this angle here that comes down from the stairs to that window. I love that. But I cannot see my mouse. I need to see my mouse. There we go. I titled the resulting image Coming Home because this is someone's condo, so it is essentially like they're coming home to it. And it's also me coming home to my craft. I backed up as far as I could when I captured this. This is in a courtyard. My back was against a wall. I had my widest lens on. But I knew when I captured, I knew how I was going to process it, but I hadn't built the vision yet, and I certainly haven't built the vision yet either. But I knew that this window needed to go away. This window needs to go away. Let me get a different pen because those need to stay up. This is going away. This window is going away. This seam in the wall needs to go away. The hurricane anchor, those are all over buildings in Charleston, by the way. They go all the way through the building and it holds them together. They came after Hurricane Hugo. These lights down here, go away. Clean up some of this stuff in the sidewalk. This vent needs to go away. I need to put some light on this wall to give it some division from the wall in the background. And wouldn't it be really cool if this window was centered between that fence and this wall, which means the window needs to go to the right. And I would love for this lamp to come down and be above the window. That's a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, sir. I'll toggle this before and after. Let me toggle that again for you. Notice this face in the wall right here? I'm telling you guys, the ghosts are everywhere in Charleston. They're everywhere. Before I moved to Charleston, I started scouting, Google Earth scouting. So if you're going to a location, I recommend doing this. And in my scouting, I was reading about the Morris Island Lighthouse a lot. Kept coming up, kept seeing images from it. And many of them were you know, beautiful sunrise images, birds in the foreground, that sort of thing. All beautiful images in their own right, but none of them told the story of the Morris Island Lighthouse. This lighthouse was built in the late 1800s, and then it was decommissioned in the mid 1900s. And it's been left there just to fall back to the sea. There's an organization trying to keep funds raised for it, of course, to keep it under restoration, but eventually it's going to go back to the sea. And so I knew when I captured this image, before even going there and seeing it, this is the first time I've seen it, I saw it in person. I knew that I wanted to put it in the center of the frame, small, by itself, because guys, it's alone out there. And so people see this image and they're like, Kevin, the name alone, that's so sad. It is sad. That's the story. It is sad. This belongs to a series titled Introspection, which is all about looking inwards and, towards your feelings. Now, the rest of the series isn't all about sadness or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. It's more happiness, in fact. But if we can evoke an emotion in our photography, then we've done our jobs as an artist. And our emotions that we evoke don't always have to be about rainbows and unicorns, guys. If you ever get to a point in your photography where you're asking yourself, should I or should I not do this or that? I'm not sure. Ask yourself this. What would Ansel do? He would utilize Photoshop is what he would do. I'm pretty sure. We all know this image, right? Moonrise Hernandez, yes. And the story behind it, he had to hustle to get out of his car to get set up before the light went away. Have you ever seen this out of camera? Wow. Look at how far that came. Look at all the stuff up in the sky. Look at how light the sky is. The foreground did not have the contrast that he felt. He never stopped working on this image until he could no longer work on it because the earlier iterations of this image were not fulfilling what he felt when he drove by this location. I love movies. I think we can all say we love movies. Guys, we award movies at places like the Oscars for best lighting, for hair and makeup for you portrait photographers, for cinematography, for special effects. We award movies for being anything but real. But it does not matter because we buy into the story. We know that aircraft can't fly in outer space like they do in Star Wars. There's no atmosphere, but it doesn't matter because we buy into the story. We know that car chase scenes and fist fights can't happen like they do in Bourne Identity, but who cares? It's really cool. And we love the story. And can you name any one of these movies that's straight out of camera? We have the ability in our photography to create something more than a photograph. We have the ability in our photography, should you so choose, to create a world that does not exist. For me personally, I say embrace it. Thanks, guys. Before we get into Q&A, which I hope we have some good questions, I would like to say that I do talk about other things other than just the why. I teach some how-to. I can teach you how to do some of these things as well. If you navigate to my website, there's a workshop section. You can read about my workshops there. And I'll let you guys know if you mention this presentation, I'll discount my hourly rates for you guys as an individual or small groups. And then I'll leave this slide up there if you want to screen capture that real fast. And then I can get back to to this slide right here to help trigger some questions, but I can also navigate pretty quickly through some of these other series that we saw. So if you have questions on anything, I think I can get to some of these images pretty quick. And that one too, probably I might have a lot of questions on that one. That's a brand new image, guys, by the way. I just released that coming home image a couple months ago, and I haven't put it into a series yet, but it's going to go to one. I'm going to have to build one for it. So yeah, let's open it up.
Well, Kevin, before they get to the questions, all I wanted to say, I'm really impressed. That was fantastic.
Thank you. Appreciate
Fantastic.
you. Thank you.
So I know somebody's got to have some questions.
I hope so. I'm here at your disposal.
I got everybody muted, so if you need to check your mute.
So Kevin, on your King and Queen Street,
Yeah.
I noticed that you kept the no right turn sign up there.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, can you give me the rationale why you kept it?
I'm not sure, actually. There was one on the other one that I actually did remove. I think I just kind of liked the framing of it.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's no real storytelling reason for that one here. No, I wish I could say there was. Let me zoom in a little bit. I wonder if I can zoom in easily. Yeah,
Just,
I
really,
could have easily removed it. You're right. No doubt.
no, I mean, it adds to the photograph. I
Yeah.
was just trying to feel you out there because everything else seems to be perfectly balanced.
Thank you.
Can you give me just a real quick how you do your skies?
The long exposure skies,
Yeah,
or how I do the composites.
More of the technical how you did it with the long exposure. Was there a typical menu that you work off?
Yeah, I'm usually for long exposure sky captures, especially out west where the clouds move very slow. I need to capture skies that are going to have long drawn out clouds. So typically that's going to be in the ballpark of 5 to 8 minutes long. So 16 stop ND filter is mandatory to do that. Yeah. So the filters go on, and then I put the camera on a bulb setting or a timer setting, typically with a remote. And those are the really thick ND filters, 16 stop ND filter. And I can teach how to do that as well. And then let the camera run for 5 to 8 minutes. And then that's the result. Yeah.
Kevin,
Thank you.
we've got one question on here that says, can you demonstrate the painting in the light? How did you make the lights go on?
Oh, yeah. So in this lamp poles here.
Yeah.
Okay. Why? Okay, here we go. Okay. So I can't open Photoshop and do that. It would just be too much right now to do that. But basically, it's just basic burning and dodging. So I have a couple of exposure layers, for lack of a better word, that when this image is a color image and I did the conversion to black and white, I did one conversion that was very overexposed, a very overexposed conversion. And then I used that overexposed image to paint into this area. And because it's much lighter than the surrounding lamp pole itself, it has the illusion of being turned on when it's not actually turned on. So it's just using an overexposed portion of a photograph into an area where the rest of the photograph is almost underexposed. In fact, it's low key. Yeah. I hope that answered that.
I think so. I think
Okay.
so.
I can certainly teach those things as well in more detail.
I'm gonna stop the recording, but I am not stopping the Q&A.